Hello and welcome to Following on India. Is anyone watching, Jarrod? Because we kind of know when India lose, nobody does, apart from a few bemused Pakistani and English and Australian fans. Welcome. India have been absolutely... Well, they've been rolled over. We all expected a 3-day test. We all expected a one-sided test. We all expected spin to play a massive part in the game. We all expected New Zealand to win by 113 runs and seal their first series win ever in India. All of that is true, apart from the last bit. India have been outspun at home on a turning track by a fourth-string spinner. How on earth do you explain that to our listeners and viewers?
I mean, do you remember when Tom Hartley took all those wickets?
Well, yeah, I do. Yeah, actually, fair point.
And we thought to ourselves, well, Tom Hartley's tall and he bowls fast, and that pitch was ragging sideways at that point. And there was something to it. How do you make that sense of what Mitch Santner did in the first innings? He wasn't bowling fast. In fact, the opposite. He slowed it down. We have seen years. We have so much evidence that suggests that Mitch Santner does not like bowling with red ball, that it's never worked in his hands, that he's specifically at his worst in Asia, right? He's not that bad outside of Asia with the red ball. He's poor, but not that bad. But in Asia, he's been dreadful. How many wickets did he get in Sri Lanka?
1.
For a lot of runs.
197 average.
197 average. That sounds suboptimal to me. So he's gone from that. He's gone from averaging 197 to outspinning Ashwin and Jadeja on a pitch that suited them as much as it certainly suited Ashwin as much as it suited him. I don't know what to do with it. Matt Henry wasn't playing. Right? He was the one who set up the last win. Kane Williamson isn't playing. Michael Bracewell should have been in this side. He's off with his wife is having a mini beast at the moment, right? Like all these different things that should have gone against New Zealand did not. Even Washington Sundar comes in. He's like the 4th or 5th choice spinner for India. He has a man of the match performance in a game where they get flogged. None of this makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, if it doesn't make sense to you, it certainly doesn't make any sense to me. The other thing is that in and amongst all of this, New Zealand also batted better than India did in both test matches.
Right at the moment, what's the thing that India have done better than New Zealand in the... You were going to say keeping.
I was about to say kept wicket.
Maybe when Dhruv Jurel was keeping. I'm not sure Rishabh Pant's been that much better than Bundle, has he? Bundle dropped 1 sitter.
Second spinner has been better for India.
That's a huge slight on Glenn Phillips for no reason.
Well, Jadeja picked up 4 for 5. No, he didn't actually. He took 3 for 72. That was Washington.
So, their third spinner has been better.
I mean, nowhere. I mean, not even their number... Blundell scored 41 today.
It's just... It's incredible right across the board how many things have gone New Zealand's way. And I think we can explain away the first test, not in a bad way. I don't want to say that they didn't earn their victory or anything, but it was a confluence of random things that you would say, well, what are the chances of anything like that happening? This is like 10 times less understandable, right? There's nothing that you can look at. If we just did a simulation of this game with these 2 11s over and over again, we've seen the 1 in 1,000 times that New Zealand win this test match, right? Perhaps we had underestimated the fact that India were on a bit of a decline and there's some issues. Obviously, their batting has been on a decline for a long time, often propped up by their top order. I think there's been questions over Ashwin specifically and whether he just looks, not quite at his best in the last, year and a half. The numbers don't quite back that up, but I kind of understand it from an eye test perspective. The second seamer is a big deal, right? They're not getting as much out of their second seamer as they were. When this team was at its absolute best, you had Umesh Yadav or Ishant Sharma, absolutely starring consistently with Mohammad Shami when he was fit as well. At the moment, Akash Deep and Mohammad Siraj don't quite look at that level. Like, there are little things that you can look at and go, it's not there. But also, they beat England when England had all the early punches in the face to India in that series. And Bangladesh just came. They are a better team in Asia. They are better suited to play India. They have really good spin bowling. They play spin really well. They had 5 frontline bowlers. They had all these different advantages in that series, and they got blown off the park. And you look at this Bangladesh team compared to this New Zealand team. Who's thinking the New Zealand team is more likely to win a single test in India, let alone the series, than Bangladesh? It doesn't make any sense. They were just terrible in Sri Lanka, New Zealand.
We have just broadcast the series on talkSPORT 2 and on the talkSPORT Cricket YouTube channel. If you're new to the channel, we'll be back for the third test match as well. Maybe you should subscribe. But we also broadcast in New Zealand via SENZ. And shortly after the game had come to a close, we spoke with one of our commentary team, Jeremy Coney, the former New Zealand all-rounder and captain, to find out what he thought about a most surprising win. Jeremy Coney's with us. There must have been a lot of pride, along with a few nerves, as you commentated on this test match and the last, Jeremy. But, what is it after all these tours to India from so many different New Zealand sides? What can you put your finger on what it is that has enabled this one to get past India on home soil?
I think, first innings runs in the first game, in addition to taking an opportunity that was provided for them. I think the catching generally has been a little better than it has of late to assist the bowlers who have created the chances. It's not perfect, but, it was enough. And, players, the batting generally, whether it was Conway getting his 90 and a hard-fought 17 in the first test match, and it was 76 and again 17 in the second here. And in fact, the top four, Young was been solid and, might be slightly, some people would say conservative, but he's got a 30 and a 40 and a 20s and so on. So he's done the job there. Ravindra lit up, I think, the first test match with that innings against spin, and we've discovered really and reinforced what people have been saying, just what a quality player of seeing length and being able to make judgments and then appropriate shots, whether it's through the offside or the leg side, but particularly the offside. And also that he's been able to, wherever it pitches, he's not just had one option. He's been able to access, in some cases, if it's off the front foot, anything from square cover right round to long off, round to wide long on, where the ball pitches. And it makes it very hard to set a fielder when you've got that kind of range. And so you're always picking up runs, and it's hard to stop a man scoring. And he's got a 60, obviously, in this second innings as well. So the top four have done their work. And we've got runs because of that. The middle order hasn't been quite so, productive. And I do think that New Zealand still need to solve a problem there at number 8 and 9. They need people who obviously can bowl, but who can also hold a bat as well. And we don't quite have those players just yet. There are a couple of options, but they are not in the side at the moment. This game, obviously, Santner was immense, absolutely immense. He showed things that we haven't seen. The pitch helped him, but he was able to get the ball into the same little area and be operating from that with skill and different pace and different trajectories, and it got some results from where it came from that threatened and made it difficult for the Indians. So, and in the first test, obviously the seamers in the first innings, and also toward that second new ball where New Zealand broke through and got about 5 or 6 wickets once, even though India had scored very quickly and it was sort of about 400 plus, they were able to break through and only be chasing 100. So, I've probably forgotten things there, John, but as a side, when you win the first series or win the first test match in an area that hasn't, and it's taken New Zealand years to do it, years. I remember I was lucky enough to hit the winning runs at Leeds when we won the first test match against England. And I thought of all the players who had gone and had been there before, much better players than I am or ever was, and yet they weren't able to secure that. So, I've talked too long now, but it does mean a lot. I'm thinking of the man in the milk tanker who actually texts in, and the man in the, they love their cricket. And they've gone along and they've witnessed loss after loss and disappointment, and yet they still hang on to hope, the same as fans do everywhere around the world. But, New Zealand for the first time ever, have taken a win in India. That's the hardest place to tour. And they've broken the drought. Who would have picked out of you three a series win? A series, not just one match, a series win in India. Come on, none of you would.
No.
I would give it about 0.5.
I think you're absolutely right. Even after that win in Bengaluru, I think we were
and
all
no Kane Williamson.
And no Kane Williamson, and no Matt Henry, and obviously...
Correct.
No Michael Bracewell. He could have played ahead of Mitchell Santner, by the way, if he hadn't had to have gone back home. Even ahead of this second test, when we knew the conditions, we knew the weather, and we were all quite confident that this would be a 3-day test on a turning track and a one-sided win. I think most people felt it will go that way, and it did. But it went the way of New Zealand, and that's the difference. Even after that win in the first test, we still expected India to win this test match. Such is the way of cricket. You described the team and where it's at and where it was and where it's going beautifully, Jeremy, and you have been doing similarly throughout this test series. But one aspect of this that I would like to ask you about, the final wicket was caught by Tim Southey, and we kind of forgotten he was on the field.
How appropriate.
Well, exactly, right? He didn't have to bowl. 6 overs in first innings, 2 overs in second.
Picked up a wicket. The only seamer to pick up a wicket in the game.
He picked up the wicket of Rohit Sharma again. But Tom Latham's come in and he's captained the side. From a very small sample size, although admittedly Latham has captained the side in the past, do you think that has made a difference? Do you think that has made a difference to this New Zealand side in any respect?
When Latham was appointed for this series, he was asked the question, what would you have done differently in Sri Lanka? And he said, not much at all. And so I don't think there are, large differences between Southey and Latham and the way that they captain sides. Look, to be really honest with you, I don't think you could appoint quite a few people from that side and they would all captain the same way. They've been together for so long, they kind of see the game the same way. They're that kind of side, I think, that whether it's they've been conditioned over the year after year after year together to see the game in a similar vein, I personally see that as a weakness. We kind of, when I was captain, we was sort of semi-imploding, quite a lot. But we all saw the game so differently. But at the same time, if I needed to go to anybody to say, what do you think? I'm thinking that way. What about you? I would get 10 different answers. Or 8 different. I didn't go to them all, thank heavens. That would just be confusing. But I would have definite people, and I would get a different answer. Now, I personally see that as a strength, a different way of doing something. But look, no one's been able to do what these players have done. And so Latham made decisions, I think, throughout. He took bowlers on and off when he thought they needed them, and sometimes, from my point of view, he left it a bit long. But that's okay. Every captain does those sort of sees things in different ways. But so similar is my answer. Maybe India didn't play quite so well also. That's throwing something else to you.
Jeremy Coney will be back with Daniel McCarty for the third test match on talkSPORT 2, the talkSPORT Cricket YouTube channel. Subscribe. And also SENZ. This raises huge questions about the Border-Gavaskar trophy and also the World Test Championship final. And we both spoke about this on Following On. Just take a look at what we had to say about both of those things. Where now for India? Because if you look at this side, there's no KL Rahul to drop. There's no Ishant Sharma to blame.
Are you saying this wasn't KL Rahul's fault?
Well, I'm really sorry to all the Indian fans who are still watching, but this definitely was not KL Rahul's fault.
I think we knew that there was a transition coming soon, and we had talked about a little bit of whether this was more like an Australian team, in that Warner McGrath start their career, and from the start of their career to the end of the career, Australia are either the best team in the world or, very close to that for a long period of time. And West Indies is very different. West Indies had 2 different generations. They regenerated perfectly and became the world's best team again, and realistically would have stayed number 1 for longer if Australia hadn't come up as well.
Essentially, they're the Liverpool of cricket. Liverpool did the same thing in the 70s and 80s, and then Manchester United rocked up.
And so that was the big question, because you look at this and you look at, everyone was saying things like, well, how great is it? They've got Akshar Patel. They can't even get him in the side. And then you look, and Akshar Patel has started to drop off a little bit. And it's like, look how many young batting talents they've got coming in. But the batting hasn't been as strong as it should be for a long time. I think there's lots of reasons to do with that. I think if you make your wickets very, very bowler-friendly at home, your batters don't get any confidence anymore. And I think there's a follow-on effect from that. They made everything about Ashwin and Jadeja. And eventually, Ashwin and Jadeja couldn't be perfect. Right? And this is their second poor series since Monty Panesar beat them. Right? Like, Monty beat them, and since then, Ashwin and Jadeja have punched everyone in the face consistently, and they couldn't do it here. And of all the teams to beat them, Mitch Santner, who is New Zealand's 3rd choice spinner, who wasn't even supposed to be in the game, outspun them. Does this mean that they think to themselves, no, we want the crown back. We cannot finish this way. We're going to go to Australia. We're going to win that series. We're going to go to we probably miss the World Test Championship now, but if they win in Australia, they can go to the World Test Championship as well. Go to England and continue. There's a lot of young talent in India. Some of the best players in these games for India were the younger players, right? But it is a transitional side, and we've been waiting for this transition for a long period of time. Those guys were holding on to win a World Cup and to win a World Test Championship. They got halfway there. The second half looks a lot harder now, doesn't it?
Well, they got to the final of the World Cup, and it didn't happen. I know they won the T20 World Cup, and you're right, it's all been about the World Test Championship final.
Rahul Dravid said that when they lifted the trophy. He looked over at Virat and Rohit and he said, now go get that WTC. Like, it's so much on their brain. And of all the series, like if you look at the series that you expected to be the banana series here that they slipped up on, it was Bangladesh, who came over with Shakib and Mahedi and a really good bowling unit and a lot of players who are very good at playing spin and a deep batting order. And that team got blown away. Completely blown away, and New Zealand turn up with none of those advantages, and the guy who took 10 wickets last time could barely take a wicket in the series for them. Kane Williamson isn't here. One of the Bracewells, whichever one it was, had to go home. Like, so many things have gone against New Zealand here. Matt Henry stars in the first test, doesn't play in the second test, and yet they've done this. And it may not be the biggest upset that New Zealand has done in the last 2 weeks, because the women also won the World Cup out of nowhere. I mean, this has got to go down as the greatest fortnight in New Zealand cricket history.
Were the warning signs there, though, for India? They lost tests at home to Australia and England twice in the last 2 series. And actually, it should have been 2-2 going to that 5th test in Dharamshala against England. If not for Jarrod and Kuldeep Yadav, the partnership they put on, Ollie Robinson putting down a catch at extra cover, never to be seen again. Actually, their signs have been there, possibly.
I think I think a really good Australia team went over a couple of times and has pushed them. Australia had a chance of beating them in Dharamshala in 2017, and India just stepped up. England got in front of them twice in Test series, and India just stepped up. At every time they've been challenged, they have found a way to overcome it. Even against Bangladesh, where it's like, this test, they've already won the first test. There's no way we can get a result here, and they have managed to step up. So I think if you go back through the Australia's great run, or even the West Indies' great run, there are always times where a team has to overcome something. But India has managed to do that. The fact that they didn't in either test match, when they are clearly the better team on paper by such a wide array, right? Even no one in New Zealand is suddenly going to claim that on paper they're a better side than India. But the first test, a few things go New Zealand's way. What do India take out of this second test? Is it a blip? Is it something more? Because, I mean, I'm still very confused at how poor they played. They brought in probably their 4th or 5th best spinner, John. And he had a man-of-the-match worthy performance. And they've been absolutely thrashed still in this game.
It doesn't bode well, does it, for the Border-Gavaskar, because they've announced the team, and
it's a shaky-looking squad, isn't it?
Well, the fast men the pacemen just aren't there. There's Bumrah. He's not going to play all 5 tests. And then there's a drop-off, a huge drop-off. And if the struggles in and around the batting, suddenly we've gone from a position of thinking this could be one of the most keenly fought Border-Gavaskars, well, since the last one.
Since the last 2.
To a point we're thinking, I'm struggling to see India winning more than a game.
I think we always thought if Mohammad Shami wasn't available for that series, it was going to be a little bit trickier for India. We did a whole podcast with Deep Das Gupta about Mohammad Siraj and kind of his ups and downs and how much you can rely on him. You've got Prashid Krishna coming into that squad, who is injury prone and not very experienced. You got Harshit Rana, who I think is a good cricketer, but again, not very experienced. They had a chance of and I don't know if he's 100% fit because BCCI never tell you anything. But I was told that Hardik Pandya was doing everything he could to play in that series. He's not in that squad. They've got a makeshift opening batter who will have to replace Rohit for a couple of games, which the Australians are going to be very, very happy about. Someone who's an experienced cricketer in Iswaran, but he hasn't actually played that much high-level cricket. He hasn't played. He's played A-level cricket. There's a lot of question marks there. We still have question marks on Sarfaraz Khan, right? There are still question marks on KL Rahul. Let's not blame him for everything, but there are question marks on him before they go over there. It's not the team that we thought when I thought Mohammad Shami would probably be fit. That was my guess. And I thought they'd pick Hardik Pandya. It suddenly looks a lot different to me.
Very few teams managed to tour Australia without picking up an injury or losing a player.
And they had 1 million injuries last time.
And they did. I think there was 2 players that played all 5 test matches, or all 4 test matches. I can't remember. 4. Either way, if you're starting a tour of Australia, it reminds me of England back in the 90s. A better team, touring, yes. But if you're starting the tour, missing 2 or 3, you're going to also you're going to lose another 1 or 2 along the way, without a doubt. It looks like if they're going to win, they're going to have to do it as they did it last time, and that is with a team that some of them will play maybe 1 or 2 tests afterwards. That's asking a lot.
Look, you still look at this squad, and there's a lot of talent. Like the first 3 names, I know Rohit's not playing all the test matches, but the first 3 names listed are Sharma, Bumrah, and Jaiswal. Like those are incredible talents. You throw in Kohli, even backups like Juve Durrell. Like there's a lot of talent in that squad. So I don't think if India play in any series, you would ever say that there is no chance of them winning. But looking at the group that they're travelling over with at the moment, and even their backups, Mukesh Kumar, Navdeep Saini, Khalil Ahmed, all very, very good bowlers. We've all seen them bowl a lot in the IPL. I don't think Australia's looking at that going, there's anyone there that's going to, that they're going to have any huge fears over. It doesn't mean that those guys won't take wickets or anything else, but I don't think they're going to worry about them. So, again, it's tough, right? It's just really, really tough. And we're to also... What happens if there are mass retirements soon? There's 4 very old players in this side, right? And that was why we thought there might be a changing of the guard. Mohammad Shami's not young either, is he? They've got a few older players who might be making some other decisions. R. Ashwood's got a very good, promising podcast career ahead of him.
He has indeed. Hopefully with talkSPORT. So that was me and you shortly after New Zealand wrapped up victory. This is massive for Indian cricket, isn't it? Because there's no simple answer. It's not as though you can just drop KL Rahul or Ishant Sharma or any of those players that everybody wants out of a team. Mohammad Siraj was getting towards that area, and then he goes. So you look down the 11 and you think, well, we've got 3rd test to play at the Wankhede. Everyone's got to play, really. I mean, you could maybe rest Bumrah.
Unless you regenerate. But they're
ahead
not
of the Border-Gavaskar. That's the thing.
Yeah.
They can't, can they? They have to go with the team. They would have loved to have been 2-0 up and Bumrah doesn't play.
Yeah.
And maybe even, I don't know, Kohli or Sharma don't play. There's no chance of that. I mean, does Pant play? He was run out today. His knee's obviously bothering him. Maybe Jarrod comes in. Maybe that is one area they can look at. Sarfaraz. Maybe they think we need to give KL a game. Rohit Sharma's going to miss the first test, we think, against Australia. Do we give, and I forget his name, which is really bad of me.
Iswana.
Yes, do we give him a game? But this isn't about correcting
But they also have to win this test, because if they don't win this test,
of course,
they can't go to the World Test Championship.
Ah!
So they now have to win 4. I think it's a minimum of 3 out of the next 6, but it's probably 4 out of the next 6 unless South Africa really play poorly or Australia, get smashed against Sri Lanka or something like that. So
one of the areas that we discussed, you and I, during commentary on day 2 was the World Test Championship final. We went through all the series between now and the end of the 2023 to 2025 cycle and kind of made predictions along the way. And, we gave South Africa a test here and a test there. Essentially, South Africa have got how many tests left? 5?
they've got 5. They could win all 5.
They could win all 5. Now, they probably won't, right? They're not that good.
They're not that consistent.
But they don't need to win all 5, do they? They can win 3, draw 1, lose 1. They've got Pakistan at home for 2. That doesn't sound too testing, despite Pakistan. Pakistan, they might be bringing those big dryers to South Africa with them. I'm not sure that's going to be allowed.
I love the idea that Pakistan have also had one of the biggest comebacks within a series of all time, and it's the second biggest comeback in the last couple of days.
Absolutely, right? So we've given them that series, South Africa. They've got a series against Sri Lanka. Is that right? So,
and one more test against Bangladesh.
We've given that 1-1, and then the Bangladesh test match. I mean, all of India's going to be watching that South Africa second test against Bangladesh, and it's not going to sit right. But they're going to be supporting Bangladesh. They need Bangladesh to win that test match. Otherwise, India need to win against New Zealand, not a given. On a surface, you'd think at the Wankhede, which is actually going to suit New Zealand a bit more, and they'll have Matt Henry back. And then they've got to go to Australia. Australia are basically just navel-gazing about, what opener do we pick and what fifth string bowler do we choose? Okay, it's a good position to be in at home. India do not want to be going to Australia needing to win 3 matches.
Yeah, and I think it is 3 matches now, isn't it? I suppose it comes down to that, but then you've also got the Australia-Sri Lanka series at the end of this, which could decide it as well. So it's not as if India even have everything within their control.
No,
they could have a great Border-Gavaskar trophy where, let's say they draw 2-2. They're still not guaranteed to be in the World Test Championship anymore. And they would have taken 2-2 at the start of this and be like, okay, we can work around this. We should still qualify. We're fine. Gave up a test against England in that series. Fine. We could still handle this. Right at the moment, and remember, they stole a result in that Bangladesh game as well. They actually got themselves ahead of the rate at that point. And that was like a couple of weeks ago. We were talking about how incredible this Indian side is, that they can make a result happen in like a day and a half. And since then, they've played about, 5? Well, I suppose they've played about 6 days of cricket, 7 days of cricket. And they have been absolutely terrible. They've almost gone from the height of, I can't believe they're doing this. This team is so ridiculous, to, we should sack everyone.
High risk, high failure. Gautam Gambhir has gone full-on gamble. And much like England...
Still think beer ball's better, but continue.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. I think he's going to go back. I'm not sure the high risk, high failure approach is something that's going to continue throughout.
I'm not sure they played that high risk.
No, but I
don't think they played well, but I would look at this and be like...
either, but they got bowled out for 46.
Yeah.
That's high. You can't get higher failure.
No, it's definitely failure. But if you compare that to Pakistan, who are literally like, we're going to play a test on the same pitch 2 weeks in a row just because, and we're going to pick like 2 spinners, we're going to see what happens, and then we're just going to scrape our next pitch and hope, again, the same 2 spinners are going to take... That's high risk, isn't it?
True.
This isn't high risk. This is normal cricket.
But you would have to say that, and this is what Ben Stokes in England said at the start of the England series, okay, go with these big turning pitches all you like, but in a weird way, that actually brings us back into the equation here, and that's what's happened. India win the toss, and they'll probably win. Do they?
I
was
get
the toss that important?
I mean,
it was a risk.
I thought it was fine to bat on day 2. I've looked, all the stats that I've had to look at doesn't suggest that when India was batting, it was any harder than when New Zealand were batting. The big difference is that India had that period where 3 of their players gave their wickets away: Sarfaraz, Rishabh Pant, and Virat Kohli.
High risk.
And Virat Kohli's one, again, I think we can just say it's one of those things that happens.
An aberration.
Yeah. Who was the other one?
Rishabh Pant.
Rishabh Pant saw a bad ball from a part-timer and probably over-committed to the attacking shot. And Sarfaraz had a bit of a brain fade. But the fact that 3 of them happened in a row is why they ended up in this position in this game, because I really don't think there's any reason for India not to have been at least par with New Zealand based on everything we've seen in this game. They should have at least made around 250 to 320 in this game, and they ended up at what, 150 odd?
Yeah, 156. In 20 years' time, when I refer to Santner's test, you'll know what I'm talking about, won't you? Everyone will.
So
this won't happen again, will it? You won't go, which one?
So I did a video like a month ago, and maybe after the Bangladesh test, where I was saying that this is such a unique challenge for anyone in Test cricket to come to India, and obviously 18 teams have come and no one's won the series, and when you start to look through historically, you start to look at it and go, what kind of a cricket team needs to come and beat India in India at the moment? There aren't teams, even great West Indian and Australian teams, weren't really set up for that challenge, right? And you look through and there's a couple of teams that I think would have been really interesting. Do you know what I never thought was, which was the most obvious answer? That it's easy to beat them. You just need Mitch Santner to take a 10-wicket haul. Like, why didn't I think of that, John?
Yeah, why didn't you? Jarrod will be back with Following on India next week, and commentary live and exclusive on talkSPORT 2, SENZ, and here on the talkSPORT Cricket YouTube channel. Subscribe from Friday of that third Test match. New Zealand can't lose it, but India, you feel, have got a lot that they can still lose. They need to win. Find out exactly what occurs here. But for now, thanks for watching us on Following on India.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.